Hello, welcome back to No Lawyer Reacts. We're both going to be surprised as to the nature of this dispute. So let's just get right into it.
Nicole says she rented an apartment from the defendant, and as it turns out, she's a bona fide scammer. The woman doesn't own the apartment, and they're here in the good name of justice suing for the $4,500 the defendant stole from them.
Right off the bat, this does happen quite a bit. I've seen it where tenants will rent out a vacant unit to someone and say that they're the resident manager, that they're the property manager, that they're the owner of the building. I've straight up seen subtenants come forward wondering why they're like being evicted for not paying rent when they pay it directly to the owner, and the owner is actually the main tenant that is not the owner. Or the owner that they think is the owner is actually the main tenant who does not own the property. Tenants being scammed by other fake landlords or tenants pretending or posing as landlords does happen. Way more than it should, but it does happen.
This is the defendant, Natalie Jean. She says she rented a two-family house from the owner and rented the first floor to the plaintiffs. Then, out of the blue, the owner was foreclosed on and tried kicking everyone out of the house quickly. She has no idea why the plaintiffs are suing her, because subletting is legal in her state, and she doesn't owe them any money in the eyes of the law. That's for sure. She's accused of pretending to be someone she's not.
All parties, please use your right hands.
Welcome back to the People's Court. Next case in the docket. The plaintiffs rented an apartment from the defendant, but they say she's just a squatter who stole their money. Now, the defendant says she's a victim too. The landlord went into foreclosure. It's the case of your house is not a home.
Thank you, Douglas.
You're welcome, ma'am.
Okay, Nicole Reason?
Yes.
And Kirby Gaston? Yes. Okay, you're suing Natalie Jean, your landlord, for $4,500 that you want returned to you, the 2 months rent you paid, the security deposit, and the dog deposit, because according to you, she didn't have a right to lease to you to begin with. What happened?
I kind of want to do a little bit of a prediction. I don't do this, but I feel like I've seen this fact pattern before, but maybe I'm wrong. There's a owner, tenant. Tenant is the defendant. She realizes she doesn't need the use of the whole house. She rents, I guess, the downstairs. The people live in the house and pay a security deposit to her, and they pay rent. That all happens. That all makes sense. I don't have any beef with that. Then the house was foreclosed on, which does happen, and the tenant is not going to know anything about that. But houses get foreclosed on, and then tenants are rushed out. And, the house is being foreclosed on, you got to get out. So in the defendant's defense is that she's probably not lying. She's, hey, I also had to get out, so everyone had to get out. But my issue is if you're staying in the house, irrespective of the foreclosure, they were staying in the house. So they were getting, housing, had to, utilities. I'm assuming that, the utilities were fine. So they did get something that they bargained for. They said they would live somewhere. They did stay there. However long they stood there, stayed there, sorry. But they did actually seem to stay there. So the rent, I believe, is valid. Her being allowed to sublet, also probably valid. The foreclosure, I don't see being her fault. But let's go into it. Let's see what the judge has to say.
It was one day my husband called me and he told me he found this apartment on this website that's called classyapartment.com. On the website it said, apartment for rent for $1,300, call ASAP, right? My husband called her. He went to see the apartment. The following day, I went with him. I seen the apartment. I said, you know what? I like the apartment. We're going to go ahead with it.
Okay.
January 1st, we gave a total deposit of $4,400. And the 3rd, we gave her additional $100. So that made it a whole total of $4,500.
Okay, did you sign a lease?
Yes.
May I see the lease you signed?
This is what she gave.
Do you have the actual lease?
No, this is everything that she gave.
Okay, so she actually gave you a picture?
No. This is
Okay, that's a picture of something. Do you have the something?
I just brought the copies.
Yeah, never do that. Always bring an original, which is much easier to read than
problem.
a picture. All right, so it says move in, blah, blah, blah. This will be a month to month. So it was a month to month. All right, now what's this other document you gave me a picture of?
That is a document that she forged the landlord name on, that I never met the landlord.
Who is Antoine Sanders?
The landlord, he's right here.
Okay. Can you switch with him, please? All right. According to you, do you have a lease with the landlord?
Yes.
May I see your lease? You are the landlord. You're the owner of the property.
Yes, I am.
All right. So now, how long have you been renting to her?
I never gave her a lease.
How long have you been renting to her?
I never rented her the place.
I don't know what you're talking. What do
I
you
never
mean?
rented her an apartment.
Okay.
At my house.
So how is she living there?
Her friend used to live there. Her friend moved out and she moved in.
Okay, so she moved in without your authority?
Yes.
Okay, show me the lease.
I'm going to be very interested to see if this woman paid rent to him and if he collected the rent. Because this does happen a lot where someone moves in, they move out, their friend moves in, and if the landlord collects rent, there's an argument a lot of the times that that person is now an accepted tenant by the landlord, irrespective of there not being a written lease between this person now and the landlord. So he may have never entered a written lease agreement with her, but let's see if she's paid. Because if she's paid, then he's gonna be like a little bit of hot water on that.
Does it have your name on it or somebody else's?
My name.
Take a look at that. Is that your signature and her signature? Because it looks like a lease. Why is that a copy that you were bringing me to? Why don't you have an original?
This
That's
is
what
not
I
my
have.
signature.
That's not your signature?
No, this
so
is
she
fake.
forged your signature?
Definitely.
Do you have any ID on you right now?
Of course.
Pull out any ID that has your signature, please. Did you forge that?
No.
You've been to court with her already, right?
Yes.
Why did you go to court?
Because she didn't want to leave when I told her to.
Why were you trying to get her out?
Because she's not supposed to be there.
Why? Yeah, but I mean, don't you want some? Was she paying rent?
No, she wasn't.
Oh, well, that's a good reason. When was the last time she paid rent?
Never.
She's never paid any rent?
No.
Have you ever paid any rent?
Yes.
Show me proof that you've paid rent.
My proof is in the other room.
I can't hear you.
Oh my God. Here I am thinking like this lady probably rented it and this is not looking good for her. This is not looking good for her. She just said proof is in the other room. You need to have proof in court right now because you're being accused of someone who was not authorized to be collecting any money and not authorized to be living in the premises. That is an issue. So my earlier potential prediction now completely upside down 180 and out the window because she potentially, we'll see, wasn't an authorized tenant.
Somebody please get whatever proof she left in the other room. Describe the bag it's in.
It's in a cat in a hat bag.
Oh, that ought to narrow it down. Yeah, quite frankly, this really looks like the same person signed both. It doesn't look like his signature at all. So if you have no right to lease the place, how did you find out that there was a problem? Like, how did it come up?
Well, the 1st of February, I just came from work and I was just signing the check to take upstairs to her. Probably after I called my husband, he told me she texted him and said she don't want no check to give her cash or money order. So I found it strange at the beginning. She told us a check, money order, or cash is okay, but all of a sudden you just want cash or money order, right? So I tried to reach out to her. She didn't answer the phone. Okay, it bothered me. Half an hour later, my bell rang. It's the landlord. 2 guys standing at the door, actually. I never seen them in my life. Now, I'm not thinking, I wasn't nervous or nothing, but I should have never opened the door. I opened the door, and he was like,
Who are you?
Yeah, he said, who are you? I said, I'm Nicole. What's the problem? He said, do you know who I am? I said, no. He said, I'm the landlord for this house. I said, you can never be the landlord because she lives upstairs. He said, no. The girl that live upstairs, who's Natalie Jean, she's not supposed to be there, and she's renting out the apartment to you, and no one's supposed to be in the house. I said, are you serious? So I got upset, and I called my husband. I told him, you have to come home right away. And from that's how
So
I
this
ended up.
happened in February.
Yes, February 1st.
And you have received 0 payment from her since ever.
No.
You didn't get, nobody paid you for January?
No.
Nobody paid you for February?
No.
And nobody's paid you for March?
No. When I found out that Nicole was staying there, I went there because Natalie did the same thing to another guy.
Are you kidding me?
I'm telling you the truth. It's court.
Why is it taking so long to get her out then?
She petitioned to the court saying that she need for cause. So I have to go back to court on the 14th.
How long you been riding the system the way you do? Go ahead and give her cat in a hat bag and show me proof that you've paid him rent.
I wanted to believe that this was not going to be the scenario. Like, I wanted to believe that she was like a tenant subleasing and this was fine. We're going to see. So far, this is not looking great. But this does happen. It does happen. And to get, it's the judge is asking, well, what took you so long to get her out? There's a whole process to an eviction. In a lot of jurisdictions, it's not that fast. And, it costs money for a landlord to go and evict. There's attorney's fees involved. And so the landlord may not have money. If the property really did get foreclosed on, he probably doesn't have the money. So let's see. Let's see what the cat in the hat bag shows.
Proof that you've paid him rent.
So how do you check out a tenant that you're going to live with or rent to know that they're okay, safe, whatever?
Criminal report and credit check.
Great. If they're not murderers, you're going to live with them.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. Like martial arts and such.
Yes.
Good. What do you say?
Well, there's different. You can do a background check. There's a lot of companies out there who do background checks. So I mean, that's another way.
Would you live with a stranger if you checked him out?
Personally, not my preference. No.
Okay.
So that's what the other guy just said. Do background check, and the next guy just said background check, which is essentially the first guy said. But in addition to doing background checks, you want to call prior landlords, and you want to call the employer. Make sure that the prior landlord that they're legit, and you want to check that the employer is legit. Even if you're a tenant yourself and you're trying to verify like a potential roommate that you're thinking of adding, to come in, maybe replacing an old roommate, you still want to vet them. You still want to vet the people that you're going to be living with. How you as a tenant potentially vet your landlord doesn't work that way. So in this case, it's really hard for applicants to figure out that there's walking into a tenant scam. That's what really, really pisses me off about the whole thing, because here's a legit couple who want to be tenants and they're getting potentially burned by this lady. We'll find out. And that's not cool for them being, why can't I think of the word? Being tricked into this whole thing that now the landlord seems to be pretty mellow with them, but they could have potentially had an eviction filed against them. And for what? They didn't even know. They responded to it. That's why responding to Craigslist ads and a lot of online postings are very tricky, because a lot of times these kinds of scams, they're done on Craigslist and they're done through Zelle, through Venmo, through cash. There's no lease. In this case, she had a lease and she seems like she forged it. But you have to be very careful. Even if you're stepping into being a roommate, you yourself want to be careful as the tenant as well.
Going inside the courtroom.
I don't have the, Okay, so from the beginning.
Show me proof that you paid him rent.
I don't have proof of the rents right
Well,
now.
then what did you think was in your cat in the hat bag? Because you told me I left the proof in the other room.
Yes, it's another lease. It's the same lease.
Sweetheart, prove you've been paying rent, because according to him, you haven't paid a penny in months and months and months. And yet you're collecting from these folks. And you know that you entered into a stipulation in January in front of another judge that says that you're gone, right?
My lease is not up yet.
Excuse me?
I have my lease that's from the state that sends him monies.
You have your lease that's from the state that sends him monies.
Okay.
Did you sign his name on this piece of paper?
No.
Show me the lease that's from the state that sends him monies. The plot just gets thicker and thicker.
So many twists and turns. I don't think I've seen a people's court that's had so many zigs and zags in it. This is probably the most entertaining one I've seen so far.
Housing Voucher Assistance Program, but it doesn't prove that actual payments are being made.
Oh, I don't know.
Where's your, well, yeah, you can call your social worker here or whoever the employee is and show that rent is being paid. This is important to me because I need to know if he's lying about rent being paid. So I'm going to take a recess and we're going to make a phone call. Now, I am like the police. If you make me chase you, it's not going to be good. So I'm going to ask you guys one last time. Are rent payments being sent to him by whatever housing authority this is?
I'm not, now I don't know. You said it could be just a paper that they didn't go through.
Well, I think you would know because it's your benefit. So you would know if
I
it's...
don't know.
And have you received any housing payments, Section 8, anything else like that, any housing program payments on this property?
No, ma'am. Actually, this case is under investigation.
This is?
Yes, it is, for fraud.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so now she has a voucher, Section 8 voucher, that she claims is paying this guy. And this guy is saying, I don't have a contract with Section 8. Because when you have Section 8, there's two contracts. There's the lease between the landlord and the tenant. And then there's a contract between the tenant and Section 8 that the tenant's going to buy it. Then there's a contract. So there's three, sorry. Then there's a contract with the landlord and Section 8 being like, okay, I'm going to accept payment, the Section 8 payment. So you have to have a lease, and Section 8 has to Section 8 goes through their whole process. And then they go, okay, the lease is good, we'll pay it. And Section 8 then sends payment directly to the landlord for either all of the rent or a portion of the rent, depending on how much the tenant makes in income. The tenant, I believe, can only pay up to 30% of their income for rent. But a lot of the time, Section 8 can pay and does pay the full rent amount. And then every year they do a financial audit of the tenant, and then they might change the subsidy, the Section 8 portion. So now she has a contract that she's saying is paying Section 8. He's saying it's under investigation. So if there is a Section 8 contract, who is getting the Section 8 money then? If he's not getting it. So now it would be crazy if she went through the whole thing and is getting paid her own rent to herself. I have never heard of that. That is insane. Borderline, on a level of fraud, very creative. I don't want to say genius. I don't want to promote that, but that is crazy. That is wild. So I don't know. Let's see what the judge hears from Section 8.
I'm not even going to take a recess. You have zero proof that you are paying the landlord. You have collected $4,500 from these people, and you're still living there, right?
Yes, I am.
Right. And are you going to evict them?
No.
You kind of feel bad for them. Yeah.
Exactly.
Right. They have not paid. You didn't pay March to her, right? Had you already paid February? Oh, no. You had already paid 2 months plus security.
Yes.
All right.
She paid 1 month and security.
What happened is, ma'am, when I found out...
If you said good morning, I wouldn't believe you. It's not funny.
Listen, ma'am.
Do you have the proof of what you paid her?
This is the receipt that she wrote up.
Oh, yeah. Well, you gave me a picture. That's this, right? No, that's something else. Yeah, it says $4,400 and then $100. And it says $4,200 and $300 on your other document. So how is it that she paid you? There's 2 receipts from you. How is it that she paid you?
They paid a broker's fee and the security deposit.
Broker's fee?
And
a broker's fee to who?
And then they paid.
Wait a minute. Oh, I love you. I want to take your chutzpah, bottle it up, and sell it to America. A broker's fee. Who's the broker on this one?
He doesn't want to be disclosed, but he's the one that put it on the ad.
Oh, but you didn't pocket that money. Why don't you watch this, folks? Why don't you prove to me that you paid any money to a broker? Go ahead, I'm waiting for it.
I don't have a proof for that.
Oh, well then I guess that you're full of baloney and you are simply a common thief who has pocketed $4,500 of their dollars. So here's what's going to happen, folks. I am ruling against you. You are going to pay them back every penny of the money that you essentially stole from them. And then you can work out with him what it is, because he's the one who's really nailed in all of this. So you can work out with him what it is that you should be paying in rent and should have been paying in rent for living there. Okay? $4,500 verdict for the plaintiff. Jeez.
Oh my goodness. I like, whoa. I had such faith that like this was like a legitimate transaction. I was like, nah, she's probably the tenant. She's probably it's very common. No. No, and like what's crazy to me is her demeanor. She was calm the whole time. Like she really, like you believe she believes herself. That is insane. But it like this happens. These things happen like in the real world. I mean, this is also like a real scenario, you know, this people's court, but you know, it's a real underlying case. That you like, man, I want to have like faith in humanity. Like I really do. I don't want to give up hope. But when you see things like this, it's crazy to me because that's like these poor tenants, like, yeah, they gave her $4,500. Yeah, the judge says give the money back. She probably doesn't have the money. She doesn't have the money. Then the landlord, he's not collecting rent and he's had to pay to get her out. And while he's trying to get her out, she's just moving people in and taking their money. That is like, I have so much to say and nothing to say at all. We watched it unfold. To like regather myself. Oh, I'm pissed off. If you were mildly entertained by this, you can watch me react to my other People's Court reactions. I also send out a weekly newsletter that you might find informative, mildly entertaining. So you can subscribe to that. The link is below. Thank you for stopping by. I have to regather myself. I am so like shooketh by this entire thing. I have to like really process. I'm going to write this down as like tenant scams to be aware of when I do that podcast, which may or may not be out by the time this video comes out. But thank you for stopping by and I will see you in the next one.